Throughout this video, I haven't used the main protagonist's real name in an attempt to hide their identity. Buenos dias, sports fans. Skip Drew here with episode 18. Hope everybody's doing well. A bit of a strange one again this episode. I'm going to cover 4 topics. 2 of them, unfortunately, are tragedies. Back in April, I was involved in a shipwreck, sailing from the UK, ideally back to here, but we didn't make it very far. Tragic accident that I was involved with 10 days ago now, I think. Although it's still a little bit raw, I'm still thinking about it. An update on the boat work. I think we're getting close, sports fans. Hopefully I'm back out on the water soon, and then just some sightseeing and a bit of music to get us back to an upbeat place towards the end of the video. Even though there's 2 tragedies I'm going to talk about, I'm going to try and discuss lessons learnt, and hopefully any young budding sailors that are still picking up knowledge can learn something from this and not repeat the mistakes. Nothing but darkness. So I'll explain the story of the shipwreck. Sadly, Gonad was trying to do the right thing and be environmentally conscious, but it was that led to the loss of his boat, because a wind farm was in the way. Had that not been there, a different story would have occurred. I still think Gonad would have lost the boat at some point, but who knows. So there's a couple of reasons why what occurred. The first one is Gonad had underspec'd the engine for the size and weight of his boat. Yes, it's only a 32-foot Nicholson, but it was stated as having 8.5 ton, and that was before all the batteries are put in and things. So it's quite a heavy displacement boat. And yes, a 10 kilowatt boat is going to give you some power in the right conditions, help you getting in and out of a slip, and 99% of the time it's fine. But in my view, you need an engine when you need an engine, and that's to get out of danger. I've come across 9 knot, 10 knot tides and rip tides and those kind of things. Yes, you try and stay out of them, but sometimes, things go wrong. So in terms of the navigation problem that we had, the wind wasn't great. We were going upwind for 28 hours, something like that. And we wouldn't have made this route had it not been for the English coast and shallows. Sandwiched in between of the traffic separation scheme is this wind farm. So you caught whichever way you go. You've got a slim route through. So we couldn't quite make the tack angle. It was very cold and we were a bit wet, and the boat wasn't properly trimmed in terms of the sails and things. So it wasn't the best sail. We were heading for Whitecliff Bay in the Isle of Wight, but because 27 hours in, we were very cold and tired, we couldn't make the tack angle. So basically, we were going towards Cherbourg. we made a tack angle, which meant we were going backwards, and we just said, well, let's anchor here. Obviously, we checked everything was going to be okay, and it was an absolutely fine anchorage. No mistake was made in terms of that. So the next day was calm weather, and it was forecast to be a lee shore that evening of around 23 to 27. I'm absolutely fine in anchoring on these shores like that. I've got faith in my ground tackle, and we should have had faith in Gonad's ground tackle, because he had 45 metres of chain, which to me is a little bit on the low side. I prefer 55 to 60. It was 8mm chain, a 50-pound anchor I think, and then the day before he'd spliced some nylon line, so we had enough scope, we had enough weight, we had enough friction, so that should have been fine. However, he decided he wasn't going to let any of the line out. I asked him twice to do so and he refused. I didn't know at the time why. I didn't know until afterwards that he said he didn't have faith in the splicing work he'd done. So that's a big error, obviously. I don't need to say any more than that. So when I found out that he had no line to deploy, I said, look, have you got any other spare line? I'll put on a anchor hitch, that's what I call it, it's probably a scientific name, and bring a line back to one of the boat cleats. And he gave me about 7 metres of line. That's all he had spare. So basically we had a bridle on, which isn't really long enough to create any suspension, so you need the nylon or polyester 20 metres or so to give the line some suspension. So when the wave creates pitch up and down and you've got a taut line like a banjo line because your boat's at its full capacity in terms of the scope and the anchor's dug in nice, you are then going to get jolted as the boat goes up and down in the waves. So the nylon or polyester line gives that some suspension and some play. So we didn't really have that with just a little bit of a bridle. The bridle is mainly there to stop the grinding of the chain on the anchor roller and to take some of the weight off the windlass. It does help a bit, but obviously not enough. I have a snubber on my bridle as well to give it more suspension capabilities. So the 3 reasons: the wind farm that was in the way, thank you greens, the scope that wasn't enough with enough suspension, and then the fact that he put a 10 kilowatt motor in a heavy displacement boat that didn't have the power to get us out of trouble when the winds were so spicy. So Gonad had his anchor alarm on. That's what woke us up. 3:30, 4 a.m. I think. Not sure what the winds were, probably about approaching 30. The tide was coming in with big rollers, so it was really the waves and the wind that were in cahoots bringing us across the shore. You could say luckily it wasn't taking us straight on shore, but it didn't matter in the end. So we rallied as soon as we could, went topsides. My phone battery was flat, which is what I used to check the depths and all those kind of things because of the power conservation we were trying to do. And we just thought his idea was just to go put it all the way into reverse, full power, don't bring the chain up on the anchor. So what I would have done, I would have tried and freed that. That's what he decided to do, so we did that. And we did go back a couple of metres, then we stopped going back anymore. Eventually decided to pull the chain in and realised that the anchor disappeared. So at this point I was thinking, well, at least we now have no drag under the water, have no chain in the water or any anchor, so maybe that will give us some more propulsion. It didn't seem to. We couldn't quite see where we were. We knew where we were. I know the map had a mental image of where we were, but you could see some lights on the shore, and then it was so dark, cloudy night, that you couldn't really tell whether it was a cliff or a cloud in front of you. You could hear the rollers, occasionally you'd see some white and stuff, but you couldn't quite get your bearings. And what was happening is we were going south the whole time and getting pushed, obviously in the direction of the wind and the waves were across shore. We tried various things. I knew that we could never get any of the sails up because we couldn't point into the wind. The boat wouldn't turn around. It was stuck in that position basically. The bow was being pushed by the wind and the waves in that direction only. So to bring up any of the sails would push us directly onto shore. We did try it thinking maybe there will just be, a pocket of deeper water. These vagaries do happen. You've got to try, if all else fails, just come up with any idea because everything's failing. But of course he's got lazy jacks. I don't have lazy jacks or a bag on my main boom, on my main sail. I prefer just to come down and then I sort it out, because as a solo sailor I've got to be doing 4 things at once. If the mainsail gets caught in the lazy jack lines, I've got to untangle it, then go back to the halyard and things, so I don't have them. And of course, as we're not pointing into the wind and we're trying to raise the mainsail, it's getting caught in the lazy jacks. But it was all to no avail anyway. We eventually ran out of room and we met some outcrop of rocks. Had they not been there, we would have been pushed out south to the channel and we would have been able to sail away, just going cross shore until we met these rocks. Now, we didn't know they were rocks. We thought we were probably on a pebble beach. We were held over at 45 degrees and we thought, okay, well, maybe we can just grin and bear it tonight, wake up in the morning, assess the damage, maybe we can get some help and some dinghies to pull us off, those kind of things. We're beached, we're not breached. But then within 10 minutes we saw there was water coming in and we called the abandoned ship. So we are beached, boys and girls. The only thing we can do is drink some whiskey.
I don't know how I'm going to pass it to you.
It's like being in one of those twirly houses. Abandoned ship.
Definitely. Right, we're going to get out of here.
This is not kind of going area now.
Right, we've got to get moving. Right.
Yeah. Just let me get my charger, please.
Right, I'm getting ready to yomp. So I don't have problems with anybody that wants to go electric propulsion, but I think you have to be very, very honest about how you are going to sail and how it will affect your navigation decisions, because in that 28-hour period, because we had an electronic propulsion, affected 3 decisions or took away some choices for us. Had we had diesel propulsion, so we had the power and the range, we could have used that 3 times in that 28-hour period. One, when we couldn't make the tack angle because we were, whichever way we turned, we were going the wrong direction, either sandwiched between the traffic separation zone, the shallows and the shoreline and the wind farm. We couldn't sail effectively to our destination. So I think had I been on my boat, I would have motor sailed to make sure I could do the Isle of Wight in 2 tacks. I would have got in front of the wind farm and then made the Isle of Wight in 1 tack. We couldn't do that with the battery capacity that we had, or Gonad didn't want to. He didn't want to risk burning capacity and then needing the engine in earnest later. Then secondly, the next day, like I said, I don't think we anchored badly. Those conditions should be able to borne out by any ground tackle. 27 knots is not, anything that you should be worried about. If you are worried about anchoring in 27 knots, you shouldn't really be out there. You shouldn't be anchoring, to be honest. Get your ground tackle sorted. So had he been honest with himself or with me and said, look, okay, tonight looks a little bit spicy. I'm not confident I've spliced the line onto the anchor chain correctly. Let's get out of trouble. So the next day, when it was calm conditions, there was a bit of wind that we could have used. It was less than 10, I think. We probably would have ended up motor sailing, I think maybe 20-25 miles to the other side of the bay, then anchored safely, no longer on a lee shore. But again, because you don't have 4 or 5 hours of capacity, really, or you don't want to burn that amount of battery capacity in case you need it later, that decision was never made. Which of course you would do if you had diesel. 4 hours with diesel is absolutely nothing. In fact, on my boat that would be that'd be 8 litres of fuel, and I usually carry about 200 litres. So these are the things that you've got to be very, very honest with yourself and think about your previous sailing experience, how often you are using the motor, and you don't even really think about it. So this is called a C clasp, and it was also fitted the day before, I think Gonad required it so that the chain would fit to the shackle that would then fit to the anchor. It looks precarious to me because it's in two pieces. I don't know whether red Loctite was used, which is 15 times stronger than blue Loctite, or any other bonding product. But we do know that when the anchor was lost, this was also lost. So it probably was the item that failed, either came apart or broke or snapped. A trooper packs his own parachute, disassembles, cleans and reassembles his own weapon. Likewise, a sea captain has to do the same and take responsibility for his ground tackle and his boat. Ergo, I assumed Gonad had taken the necessary steps to get himself knowledgeable and quality driven enough to carry out any work that he needs to do to get the boat seaworthy. Let me explain the situation. The patient is breathing. Yes, I am breathing. Yes. We are two shipwrecked sailors. We've run aground and we've just swum ashore and climbed to safety. We now can't find a hotel, and I think my friend may be getting hypothermia, so we just need to seek shelter with no injuries. This is the most relaxed I've ever been, I think. Beautiful weather, beautiful surroundings, sitting drinking coffee and watching the horses train. It's so relaxing. Necesitamos urgentemente una ambulancia. Mi nombre es Paul. Mi ubicación es la estación de tren de Puerto Real en la Tacaya. Una madre y bebé cayeron por las escaleras mecánicas. La madre es consciente pero muy angustiada. El bebé está en silencio, sin moverse y posiblemente muerto. No sé. So now I'll explain to you the second tragedy of the year. The weekends I have to get off the boat, so I'm in a hotel. And I decided I was going to go to Jerez, the nice sherry making town of Andalusia, because it is a nice town and they've got sherry. Apart from that, it's €2.49 on the train from El Puerto de Santa Maria, and it takes 8 minutes, so it's a bit of a no-brainer to spend some time there, being as I have to get out and about every weekend. So on the way back, I was probably a little bit worse for wear, who knows, I may have had a sherry, but because it's so quick, I got on the train, just got into my train of thought, probably on my phone, and missed my stop. In fact, I think I missed 2 stops. That's how stupid I am. So I got off the train, mooched along to the other side and waited for the return train. This is middle of the afternoon on a Monday, nobody about, small little station. Sitting there on my phone, minding my own business, I hear this mighty wail over and over again, and I looked up and I could see a woman had lost control of her pram going up the escalator. She was just spinning at the bottom of the escalator, you know, washing machining, rolling head over heels. I was thinking, well, I'm miles away, there's nothing I can do. She's not free falling, she's just spinning. She'll catch her feet in a minute and she'll get up. I know a lot of people have done it. I've seen this, you know, it's quite a common occurrence, to be honest. And nobody was coming to her help. She was still screaming uncontrollably. She looked as if she just couldn't get up for some reason. And I thought, well, somebody will come down to her. Nobody did. So I thought, okay, spring into action. So I left my phone and my bag and my wallet and my passport, everything, just left it there, sprinted up the side of the platform, up the stairs, across the ticket office and down to where she was. By this time she was 3/4 of the way up the escalator. Now what happened next, I beat myself up for about 4 hours, but then realised it was the most logical thing to do. So when I got there, what I saw was the woman was coming up the escalator now, but face down, screaming, completely out of control, having an absolute breakdown, wailing at the top of her voice. The pram was wedged in between the glass sides of the escalator, wasn't moving anywhere, and the baby was half out the pram. It looked like there were training straps that the legs had kept him in, but his head was on the escalator, he wasn't moving and he was deadly silent. And then there's some debris from the pram that was coming up, milk bottles, blankets, games, those kind of things. They were potentially a trip hazard, so I kind of kicked them out of the way and I went down to pick up the pram, and that's the bit that was bithery, because I was thinking, why did you not go for the casualty? But it was right in the way. There's nothing, you know, I would have made it worse, I think, had I tried to lean over to get the baby. And I was kind of worried, had the baby got a broken neck, was I going to make it worse? Had I lost my footing, I'd then go careering down on top of the mother. So I just thought, let's make the scene as safe as possible. Luckily 2 people came at the same time, or just behind me. The second person helped me with the pram, and the third person picked up the baby. And we didn't communicate with each other because this took a while, to be honest, to free the pram. We just automatically went into auto mode, and then the guy had picked up the pram. You know, you could see the whites of their eyes, everybody was in complete shock. He just motioned emergency services, once DOS. So once the emergency services arrived, I skedaddled back down to my bag and sat there in shock for a few hours. I didn't realise it was that long, but I must have let 5 trains go by and didn't even realise. The reason was I was just overplaying the scenarios in my head. I had 3 questions that I was battling with. A, could I have done anything better, differently? Did I make the right choices on where I went and what I did? I think the answer to that is yes. There's nothing more I could have done, although I did have a bit of guilt not picking up the baby first. Why did she not take the elevator? There was obviously one there on the platform. And why was the mother acting the way that she did? Because to me it just seems, as a parent, your natural reaction, whatever state you're in, you would do whatever you could to get to your baby or child or whatever. But she didn't. She never even looked. The 8-10 minutes I was over there for, she never even looked at the baby. As soon as she came up to the top of the escalator, she was still on her belly. She was still screaming and wailing, unconsolable. And I think probably that she witnessed how bad the fall of the baby was. Sorry to speak bluntly, but she must have known that the baby was toast. So I checked media outlets and press and things to try and find out whether it had been published, what actually happened. But there's nothing. It's complete darkness there, and I fear the worst. I just think the baby was lost in an instant. So the moral of the story is, you think everybody knows this, but clearly not. Don't take pushchairs, prams up the escalator. Please take the lift. Cleaning up nuts and bolts, carbonate of soda, white vinegar. Cleaning them up, and then I'm going to stick the transmission back together.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
It jumped up a notch.
It did,
So
didn't
I'm
it?
not well, I am reassembling it, but I'm just going to finger tighten things back together and give it a flush through the oil. So I'm not putting any Loctite or anything on just yet. Okay, 6 bolts. So this is more like freeform jazz than engineering. But the challenge is at the reverse of the engine, where my finger's pointing, is the transmission. End of the transmission, there's a swivelly thing with 4 holes in. The shaft is coming from the propeller to meet the transmission, and that's got 4 bolts. So the 4 bolts need to line up with the holes in the transmission, both the tilt, the pitch, the axis. Probably less than a millimetre accuracy. So the way I've got it is, obviously got a line across the cockpit winches, that's giving it the height. Fortunately they're a bit further aft of the engine, so this dark blue line is going to the mast winch, and that's pulling it forward. So that's taking care of those 2 axes. These 2 here are giving me a bit of left and right and a little bit backwards. So I've got to drop it, forward it, blah blah blah, and then keeping the propeller shaft forward, I've got a block at the back that's stopping that from moving. Once I've slid it forward about 1 inch, I can then go from millimetre accuracy to thousandths of an inch accuracy to get the coupling on. So yeah, it's a very difficult challenge, this one. Así la situación. Oh no, that's Spanish. So the situation is, even though Lady Mare is just over there, I can see it. You're not allowed to stay on it at weekends. I have to get a hotel or sleep on the floor outside. So it's just over there, but it takes me 45 minutes to cycle all the way into town, all the way over there to get the bridge, and then to cycle over here to my favourite little 4-star hotel, and try and relax at the weekend. So according to my Savvy Navi navigation app, I've been in the Cadiz area since 11th of February. It's now the 11th of June, and I'm reminded of a Matrix quote from the Oracle. You can never see past choices that you cannot make. And that kind of describes the mood and feeling I've had for these past months, because of the engine troubles and not quite knowing what the right thing is to do to fix it, and not wanting to be too dejected, because obviously life is fantastic here. I really do appreciate the opportunity and how great it is to be in such a wonderful place of the world with no real great troubles, and just try to enjoy it. So flipping between enjoying the environment and the opportunity, but also having this kind of feeling of dread that I don't really know what I'm doing with the engine, I don't know how to fix it, I don't really know what the right thing is, and also feeling a bit like a caged animal. I bought the boat to buy freedom, and yet I'm on the hard. I've been on the hard for months now, not quite knowing what I'm doing, what I'm going to do next, and not being able to move on and you know, fulfill my dreams. I know it's temporary, but even so, there's an opportunity cost to sitting on the hard, not being at home, not, you know, taking up other opportunities and being away from family, those kind of things. So I have this sense of guilt in what I'm doing, and I know I shouldn't, because I've made the choice and everybody's bought into the idea that I'm doing what I'm doing for the right reasons, but you just can't help it. It's human nature, I think, to have a little bit of suffering. But I do have the feeling this week that I've made a little bit of a breakthrough with the engine. I think I fixed the transmission. I won't know until I can do some proper testing. First I can run some water from the hose to get the engine running and see the prop spinning, but I won't know until it's in the water and there's some actual pressure on the prop, and engaging the gear back and forward a few times to give me some confidence that I've actually fixed it. So I am sitting here at the weekends, or this weekend, thinking, okay, oh, maybe I can be moving to Gibraltar soon, and what else do I need to do at the boat? And yeah, we're back on, but also not letting myself get too excited and setting myself up for some disappointment, because I may not have fixed it. I haven't done a lot, and let's face it, complexity doesn't mean anything. It also feels like, have I fixed it? Was it that easy? I must be a genius. No, you're not a genius, so you haven't fixed it. So I'm wrestling with these ideas. 50% of me is feeling upbeat. Okay, we could be back on the water within a week, and I've got to go to Cadiz and check out of Schengen and yeah, get us some provisions and get back on the water. Fantastic. But also saying, steady on, cowboy. You know, one step at a time. What are you going to do if you haven't fixed it? Then what's next steps? And that's when I'm thinking, well, I don't really know. What would I do? So I don't have all the answers, but this is what makes it an adventure.